Good afternoon, boys and girls. Thanks for joining us for fourth grade math today. I'm Miss Weekly from Allentown Elementary. I'm so glad you're tuning in. We are going to have some fun with math today. We are actually going to move away from multiplication and division with those fractions and decimals, and we are starting geometry. And we have some fun activities to do today, so thank you for staying tuned with me. Let's look at our essential concept. So what we're going to do today is we're going to draw points, lines, line segments, rays, and angles, right, acute, and obtuse angles, and perpendicular and parallel lines. And we're going to identify these in two-dimensional figures. So let's go ahead and get started, boys and girls. All right, so I want you to grab a sheet of paper and a pencil real quick. All right, and I want you to draw a shape with 4 straight sides. All right, well, what did you draw? Could you have drawn a shape like this? Well, I said to draw a shape with 4 straight sides. Does that have 4 straight sides? Yeah, but what if I wanted you to draw a square or a rectangle? How could we be more specific in our directions so that we could come up with the same shape? Do you know? Let's see. Let's look at our vocabulary today. So our first word we're going to talk about is a point. A point is a single location in space, and it simply looks exactly what it is. It's a point, a little dot. All right. And then let's talk about what a line is. Well, you're probably thinking, Miss Weekly, we know what a line is. All right. But do you know the exact definition of a line? A line is a straight row of points that go on forever and ever and ever in both directions. So that means a line will go on forever in this direction and on forever in this direction. All right. And the way we're going to know that a line is a line is it's going to have an arrow at each end. And that's how we know that arrow lets us know that, oh, it'll go on and on and on. Then we have something that we call a line segment. A line segment is part of a line. It's a straight row of points that start at one point and end at another point. And so it's going to look like a straight line with a point at each end. So let's review before we go any further. We have a point, and that's a single location in space. We have a line, and that's a straight row of points that goes on and on forever in both directions. All right, and then we have a line segment. And a line segment is a straight row of points that start at one point and end at another. All right, and then we have something that we call a ray. You may not have heard of a ray before. A ray is something that it's a straight row of points, and it starts at one point, but then goes on and on forever in one direction. So can you spot the difference between a line and a ray? Right, a ray has a point at one end. So it stops at one end, and then it goes on and on at the other end in one direction. And the line can go on in both directions, whether it's horizontal, diagonal, or vertical. All right, then we have what we call an angle. And anytime we're drawing shapes, you're going to have angles when you draw straight-sided figures. All right, so an angle is 2 rays. Remember what a ray is? It has a point, stops at one end, and the other end it goes on and on and on. All right, so an angle is made up of 2 rays, 2 lines, or two line segments that meet at the same point to form an angle. And it's going to look like this. All right, so say them with me, guys. A point, a line segment, ray, and an angle. All right, so now let's talk about how we name these geometric figures. All right, well, if we look at that point over there, when you're looking at figures, you'll see a lot of letters. So what letter do you see beside that point? An A, right? So we would simply name that point, point A. All right, let's look at, do you remember what this is? Is it a ray, a line, or a line segment? A line, remember, because it has those arrows on each end to let us know that it goes on and on and on in both directions. So how would we name that line? Well, we would simply name it line AB or BA. And instead of writing out the word line, we just write the line on top of the two letters like this. So we would pronounce that, we would say that as line AB or line BA. And either one is correct. You could say AB or BA, and that would be the correct way to name that line. All right, do you remember what that's called? Is it a ray or a line segment? A line segment, very good. And a line segment has a point at each end. All right, so it has a stopping point at each end of the line in a line segment. And we would name it similar to the line, but notice, are we going to draw a picture of a line? Nope, we're going to draw a picture of a line segment because we know it's a line segment, right? So we're going to draw our line segment, and then we could say line segment CD or line segment DC. All right, and what's this one? A ray. Very good. And we would name it ray XY or, and actually we can only say XY for the ray because we always name the point first in a ray. All right, and notice how we draw the ray on top of XY. And then the last figure we have is an angle. And we would name the angle, we would simply just write an angle like this. Notice how we don't have to write the arrows right here and the point or the letters. We just write the little angle as our symbol, QRS, or angle SRQ. So when you're naming angles, you can start at either arrow. You could say QRS or SRQ. What we can't do is start at the point when we're naming an angle, excuse me. And we have to go from an arrow point to arrow, like QRS or SRQ. We couldn't say SQR. A lot of students make that mistake, and we can't name it like that. All right. All right, so now that we've talked about different types of lines and other geometric shapes, let's talk about the different types of angles. We know what an angle looks like, right? Well, there's several different types of angles, and we're going to learn what we call those. So our first angle that we're going to talk about today is an acute angle. And an acute angle is an angle that's less than 90 degrees. All right, so when you measure the angle, it's going to measure less than 90 degrees. And Miss Weekly likes to think about an acute angle as like a cute little angle because it's little bitty. It's smaller than 90 degrees. All right, so that's just a simple way I think about acute. All right, and this would be an example of an acute angle. Remember, and it's going to measure less than 90 degrees. have what we call an obtuse angle. Can you say that word with me? Obtuse angle. And an obtuse angle, that's an angle that measures greater than 90 degrees. It's more than 90 degrees. All right, and it's gonna look like this. So if you want to make the motions with me, this would be an acute angle with your arms. All of these would be acute angles. And then an obtuse angle could be like this or this. Anything that measures, higher than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. Then now we have a right angle. And with a right angle, it measures exactly 90 degrees. When you have squares and rectangles, the corner or the vertices of those shapes are right angles. They make like a perfect L shape. All right, so this is what a right angle looks like, and it's exactly 90 degrees. All right, let's look at our last one. We have a straight angle, and this angle measures exactly 180 degrees. So let's do our angles with our arms, okay? The first angle would be an acute angle. Then we have an obtuse angle. It's open, more greater than 90 degrees. It's a big old angle. Then we have a right angle. It's exactly 90 degrees. And then we have a straight angle, and it's exactly 180 degrees. All right, guys, let's practice. All right, let's look at this figure. You're thinking, Miss Weekly, what in the world? That's crazy looking. Well, do you see any angles in that figure? I see a lot of angles. All right, can you find a point? Do you see any points? I see a point. There's lots of points in here, right? We could say point F. Do you remember how we would write that if we were naming a point? We would write point F. All right. What if I wanted you to find a ray? Can you find a ray? All right. We could say JD. And remember, when we're naming the ray, we want to name the point first. So we would write JD, and we would just simply draw a ray, and the label would be, the letters would be J, D, or, oh, I'm sorry, with a ray, it can only be JD, I'm sorry. Do you see any more rays? You could do JE, you could do FH, FG, and do you see any more? I think that's all the rays. I may be missing one or two. All right, let's look at a line segment. Do you remember what a line segment is? That's going to have a point, an exact point on each end. All right, we see the line segment CJ or JC. We also can see CF or FC. We can see BC or CB, CA or AC. So there's lots of different line segments in this figure. All right, can you see any lines? Can you find any lines? Sure, we have line GD or DG. And I think that's the only line we have in this figure. It's just this one right here. The other ones are rays or line segments. All right, can you find any angles? There's lots of angles, right? We have DJE or EJD. Now, can you name that angle? It's less than 90 degrees, right? It's less than that perfect L shape. So, what's it going to be called? An acute angle. Very good. So let's write that down. If I was just naming the angle, I would write my angle and I could say DJE or angle EJD. All right, notice how the point is always going to be my middle letter when I'm naming an angle. And since I know that it's less than 90 degrees, I would also call that an acute angle. Acute angle. All right. Can you find any right angles in this figure? Very good. I can spot 4 right angles right away because I can kind of visualize a cross right here, and I see that DFH or HFD would be a right angle, or DFA or AFD would be a right angle, GFA or AFG, and GFH or HFG. Those are all some examples of some right angles. We also have CFJ as a right angle as well. And remember, what does it have to measure to be a right angle? Do you remember? 90 degrees. Very good. All right. Do we see any obtuse angles in here? Let's see. Do you see any? Do you remember what an obtuse angle is? That's an angle that measures greater than 90 degrees. I see angle ACE or angle ECA. Do you see any more obtuse angles? We could also say ACJ and JCA. All right. So how could you describe this figure? Can you find any angles? What kind of angles? Can you find any rays or line segments or lines? There's lots of different geometric figures that you can spot. I see right here with this angle, even though it's kind of diagonal, that's a right angle. And that would be angle YXZ or ZXY. All right, so I want you to think about all we've learned today. We've talked about what a point was. Remember, that's an exact location in space. We talked about a line, and remember that goes on and on and on in each direction, and it's going to have an arrow at each end. And it could be vertical, horizontal, diagonal. It could be in any direction as long as it's straight and it has an arrow at each end. Then we have a ray, and it has a point on one end and it stops at that one end, but on the other direction it goes on and on and on, and it's going to have an arrow. All right, and then we have a line segment that has a point at each end. All right, and then we talked about our angles. Can you name the angles that we named today that we discussed? An acute angle. Very good. Remember, an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. All right, it's our cute little smaller angle, right? Then we have an obtuse angle that's larger than 90 degrees. And then we have, what angle do we call that's exactly 90 degrees? A right angle, and it could be in either direction. All right, and then do you remember what this angle is called? It's exactly 180 degrees. That's a straight angle. So what I want you to do is you can do this with markers, pencil, colors, paint. You could get outside and do it with sidewalk chalk. All right, I want you to make a figure using our geometric lines and angles that we discussed today. So just get a black marker or a pencil, and you can just go to drawing your different rays and line segments and acute and obtuse angles. Then you color it in. All right, you can use a ruler or a straight edge to make sure your lines are straight. And this is actually a student example. I'm going to give a shout out from Mr. Anders from Dolls Intermediate. He did this for me just so I could use it today. So thank you, Anders. So I hope you have fun with this activity. Remember, you can do paint, colors, markers, sidewalk chalk, lots of different ways to do it. Share it on Facebook or Instagram and use that hashtag learning for MCPSS. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. I hope that you tune in Monday because we're going to have more fun with angles and different types of shapes with some more fun activities. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks.